Welcome to Lead the Way with Anna Gauker. Your guide, Anna Gauker, is on a quest of her own to find effective ways of creating change and inclusion in our communities. You have come to the right place if you believe in truth, justice, and coffee. Thanks for joining us.
Hello, this is Lead the Way, and I'm Anna Gauker. Thank you for joining us for this episode. I'm so excited to share with you my recent conversation with Amy Kerwin. She is Executive Director of Primates Inc., which is a nonprofit organization that she also founded in Madison, Wisconsin. They provide a sanctuary space to former research lab rhesus monkeys, and they are also now welcoming into their sanctuary space former pets who are also primates, and they rescue animals from the pet trade and also retired rhesus monkeys and provide a safe environment for them to live in their retirement. Amy believes that the least society can do is give back to the monkeys whenever possible by retiring them into an enriching, spacious sanctuary. The Primates Inc. vision is for their sanctuary to serve as a prototype for other communities to establish their own sanctuary space so that the thousands of primates who have a chance at retirement can live in a peaceful and spacious sanctuary. I really think you are going to enjoy listening to my conversation with Amy, and I hope that it inspires you and motivates you to look at life a little bit differently and see the opportunities that you have in your own environment and your own life, and see what problems you might be able to address and make a change. You will hear how Amy had a very impactful experience in her early career that really changed the whole trajectory of her life. And that is not something that's always possible for someone to take on the way that she did, but I think that we can all kind of take that knowledge and understand how she was able to make such a big impact with the rest of her career, and perhaps we can all do that in our own ways. Here is Amy Kerwin. Well, can you tell me a bit about your background and where you're from?
I lived in Madison for about 25 years now, and I moved here from Whitewater, Wisconsin. That's kind of where I grew up. But then I attended the University of Wisconsin and wound up working in a primate lab because I had aspirations of going to veterinary school. And it looks good on the application to have primate experience. So that's how I ended up working in a lab with 97 rhesus monkeys for 5 years, who basically changed my life forever.
How did you first know that you wanted to work with animals?
Well, actually, I had wanted to go either way of music major, being like a band director, and then I dropped out of music right away in school because you have to learn all the instruments and stuff, and I kind of, very high stress. And then I was more into the science aspect of things, medical microbiology, and then wanting to go to vet school just to be able to help animals too, combined with that. But then actually, while I was working in the lab, I realized that things could be changed in the lab for the better. And since I was at first well liked and promoted, I thought maybe I could be the one to bring about change in the lab to improve the welfare of the monkeys, and send them to sanctuary. But then I saw all these barriers that existed, and this was at the Harlow lab from 1999 to 2004. Barriers against retirement, against improving things. So rather than just use the lab as a stepping stone on my way to school, the 97 rhesus monkeys, I call them the 97, and have inspired me to try to do more for monkeys. And so business became my passion after my undergrad of medical microbiology. Then I went on to business school because I wanted to be an effective leader of a nonprofit sanctuary that helped give back to monkeys from labs and the pet trade, since there was actually such a need to help them. Even though my lab didn't send monkeys to sanctuary for several reasons. Money, they thought it was too quote unquote animal rightsy for their taste to give back to them. But I realized other labs were sending their monkeys to sanctuary. And then the sanctuaries that existed at the time were only 8 nationwide, and they had to turn away labs with these programs. And so then, since the need existed, I just knew that I could work with the labs who are already doing it. And then I take pride in connecting labs who are interested about sending monkeys to sanctuaries with those labs that do that. So that's kind of one of the aspects, and now why monkeys are my passion. Basically, I'll always spend basically the rest of my life donating my time to help them and involving the community.
You said that you originally were interested in making changes in the lab and improving conditions. Can you talk a bit about the experience, what you were noticing that might need to be changed, and the barriers that you were first encountering to that vision?
Well, one of the things was how we removed the monkeys from their enclosures. Typically, they didn't need to be removed because the minimum guidelines themselves are one of the challenges. They're about 27 cubic feet, so it's like 3 by 3 by 3 feet per monkey is a condition. And so naturally, and they didn't have wood or straw. It was argued it would clog the drains. So they just had the grate, and then their feces and urine would go down into a splash pan, and then all that would get swept away. And then we would remove them by putting a transport up to the cage. And then I would take them to another room, and it was called WGTA testing, I think Wisconsin General Apparatus testing, kind of this testing where you place the rhesus monkey across from you and you both are looking at each other. You're about 3, 4 feet away from each other, and you push a board of covered treats towards them. And it's usually like 3 wells with one of them has a treat in it, and you test their cognition and memory. And then their mothers were actually given moderate amounts of alcohol. So we were actually testing the cognitive abilities of the offspring. And so, in a sense, that aspect of working in the lab, and I think other students working with monkeys would be glad to be in that study because it was sort of semi non-invasive in that the monkeys, some of them were really engaged and wanting to knock the objects off and take the treats as positive reinforcement training. But then just getting to know how intelligent they were and reading the grants, um, because they were so similar to us, that's why we were getting funding to study their cognition and test on them. I thought, geez, the least we could do is be sending them to sanctuary. Just the act of removing them from their cage into the transport. If a monkey didn't, they were smart enough. Most of them would just do it over time. But monkeys who were stubborn, who obviously didn't want to go into transport, we'd start with a pole. So it's all negative reinforcement, like you just show them a pole and then they'd go in. But if the pole didn't work, then you'd put a net on their enclosure to scare them in. And with 40 monkeys in one room, all being housed, when they see a net, it's incredibly stressful. And many of them were in pairs, but then the ones who fought, if they fought 3 times with each other, they were labeled as aggressive, and then they were singly housed. So you'd see more abnormal behavior. I was concerned about the variables in the data we were collecting because of the species inadequate environment and abnormal behavior and aggression, and negative stimuli. So I brought up and I paid for myself to go to a conference out in Baltimore, that was about training animals to participate in welfare checks and stuff like that they do at zoos, and other labs were implementing positive reinforcement training. And I thought maybe we could too. And so that would be like clicker training to get them to voluntarily cooperate, to go into the transport, little things like that. And I was allowed to work on that after hours and on the weekends. And they specifically told me you can work on that when it's off of your research time, because I was a research specialist. So they didn't want to pay me to do any of that. And, this was 20 years ago when I could kind of get away with just working for free on the weekends. But then concern after concern and trying to make change in the lab. And then the retirement, I think, was the final straw. And also I said, there were protesters in town, and we were told not to talk to protesters against animal testing, because us in the lab, we were kind of manipulated to think that animal rights activists were ignorant and violent. And so they said they'll twist your words and they'll threaten you. And so you're not allowed to talk to them. And so I didn't, but I said, well, since our salaries are paid for by NIH funding, and that's by taxpayer dollars, I think I should at least write down their concerns. And that's when the supervisor basically instantly turned against me. She said, "Are you turning on me?" Stuff like that. And then if you get labeled like that, then all my duties were taken away from me. I was told I was no longer trusted. And that was a really hard pill to swallow.
Wow. Yeah, no kidding. I can imagine that it was difficult to see your supervisor treat you differently in that way.
Mm-hmm. And since I knew I could no longer make change in the lab and improve things, that's when I decided I should resign and change careers, because I was already labeled, and just keep focusing on the monkeys. So now 20 years later, we at least have a sanctuary.
You talked before about the potential drawbacks to a lab wanting to send animals to sanctuaries. What would those be? Like, why would a lab maybe not be interested in it?
Well, I think money is a motivating factor. One of the top reasons they can usually just sell the monkey to more research and make money off of them. So the monkey could go through multiple studies, and then, or animals, they could be kept on as breeders. But then the ethical conundrum comes in when the monkey can't be sold to more research, say their hormone levels are off or something, or you actually, you come to the realization that you're going to put a monkey down, but they're not part of a terminal study. I think now that more and more researchers know an alternative exists where they could actually send the monkey to sanctuary because we're becoming more mainstream, all of us teaming up together and helping place monkeys. So now that researchers know it's there, the ethical compromise overcomes that challenge. And then there is the idea that it's too animal rightsy to bring recognition to a monkey deserving of sanctuary, and that they're just meant to be used for research, and that's that. But then knowing how similar they are to us, I think is what gets a lot of us motivated to want to help send as many as possible. The sanctuary just seem like common sense. And so I had always pushed back and said that, other labs are sending monkeys to sanctuaries. So it's a standard practice in some labs. So certainly you can't label that as animal rights if it's already a practice existing by the researchers themselves. So I just prefer to connect the researchers with each other and leave this divisive labeling out of it. And so they can have their programs and help facilitate. I think finding funding to send monkeys to sanctuary, researchers have tried approaching the foundations. And then the foundations, I heard of stories that the foundations would say, well, fund for your research, but you need to delete that line item for retirement because it's a non essential line item. And so barriers like that, these researchers will face. And then I wrote a paper after I resigned from the lab called Overcoming the Challenges to Retiring Old and New World Monkeys from Research Facilities. And it kind of goes through the animal rights labeling, the funding, but then it provides solutions on what's already being done out there, how researchers can write grants specifically for this part of thing, or they can get money from their overhead funds and create a fund. They'll move some funds around, host private fundraisers. So I've worked with researchers who didn't come up with the money in their lab, but they were able to send a couple monkeys to us. Also, the fear that if they retire a couple monkeys, the public's going to start asking questions. Okay, how many monkeys does this lab have? And so they're worried about opening that Pandora's box. And how to overcome that barrier is that we do sign confidentiality agreements with the labs who do send the monkeys to us. And that's for that reason. But we do tell the lab we are going to say the monkeys sent to sanctuary from a lab. And like the least we can do is give back to them whenever possible. So that's kind of how I weave through all of that, basically.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but the logic sounds like it's essentially like if we recognize that an animal deserves retirement, then that could complicate the rest of our work, because if a monkey deserves retirement, then maybe that means they deserve other things as well, like better treatment and lab conditions. Is that kind of what it is?
Yeah, you nailed that. exactly. I mean, and then sending them to sanctuary and having to set aside funding for them. And if it's them, then more monkeys. There's actually, with the USDA animal care reports and the number of labs nationwide, there's over 105,000 monkeys still in labs and breeding facilities. And so, even if less than 1% had a chance at achieving sanctuary right now, with the sanctuary world the way it is and the challenges we have in just providing care for these monkeys for the lifetime, they can live up to 40 years old. And these aren't even chimps, these are, I feel like the chimps are being helped by Jane Goodall and so many wonderful people. She's an amazing hero of mine. But then when I realized the monkeys, the rhesus monkeys, are kind of getting overlooked, um, despite their numbers in the thousands still, that we've got to do something as a society to get these monkeys to sanctuary. So I feel like we're all kind of involved. In addition to asking the labs for funding, they're not going to provide for multiple years of care and put all this time. They'll give you, I mean, they want to do a one-time payment, do what's right, but then, they're going to be, focused on sending the next monkey to sanctuary, and it is costly. But I think that as a society, we can overcome that and see more monkeys achieve sanctuary. That's what I'm really hoping for, despite all those barriers.
I watched a documentary last year that really opened my eyes to research and how animals are involved in things like even just cleaning products or beauty products. And it really made me more focused on, what products I use and paying attention to if it says like cruelty free. And I know that's very different from the lab that you're talking about, the kind of research that was being done. But it is true that like testing on animals is pretty central to innovation in our lives and all the different advancements that we've made in medicine. Um, so is it even possible to completely get away from using things or participating in that side of consumerism, if that makes sense? Or would that just halt all of our advancements?
Well, I feel like our technology is ever evolving to be able to come up with alternatives, like the common um, talking point or common set of rules amongst researchers are the three R's: reduction, refinement, and replacement. And I think the cosmetics industry has come a long way in that there's now methods to test toxicity of cosmetics without having to use animals. So, yeah, when the alternative exists, let's certainly support it, as a society. And I love the model of Lush Cosmetics because they're cruelty free, but they also fund for animal sanctuaries. And so I think the more technology that exists, the more that the refinement part of the three R's, it's something that scientists try to achieve, um, that could help too. I have a dream of just our our nonprofit basically stays in the middle of the animal testing controversy and just says the least we can do is give back to the monkeys whenever possible and maximize retirement. So I'd like to add that fourth R in myself: reduction, refinement, replacement, and retirement. But yeah, seeing them achieve sanctuary if they're to be used. So increasing the costs associated with using them, so that it becomes more of a motivation to replace them as well, because it's going to be cost prohibitive. And in my personal opinion, just seeing drugs not making it to the market after they have been tested on animals, sometimes, or they get to the human stage and then they're withdrawn. But what about all the beagles and monkeys that the drug went through? So there's still plenty of animal testing for drugs. But in my lab, I felt like we could have gotten better data just interviewing mothers who would come forward and say they drank during their pregnancy a little bit, and then, pay them to get details. But then the argument against that was that we need to factor out all the variables of life and just focus in on one thing. So the idea was, if we treat all the monkeys the same, the only variable that will come out is what the amount of alcohol you gave their mothers. But actually, you're finding the monkeys had such different personalities, and they were coping with their inadequate environments. So they had different amounts and levels of abnormal behavior. They fought with their partner to the point of where they'd stop testing. And so variables like that I thought, well, these are variables that we're not even reporting. And so I felt that, there could be some streamlining and improvements, certainly based on my own experiences, and increasing welfare in labs would improve that. And then, since we have robot technology and we're doing so much human stem cell research, I feel that there's promising fields that can keep working towards, especially replacing toxicity testing.
And I think that we've talked so much about your experience in the lab. I should probably shift and talk about what is Primates Inc. How did you come up with the specific mission, and what do you do exactly?
Well, it took us 16 years of overcoming challenges to even find land to build the sanctuary. And one of the reasons why was that the local labs, said there was no need for sending monkeys to sanctuaries, because they either reused or kept them on as breeders or whatever. So then telling a big city and the public and the university that there's no need for our sanctuary really did undermine our cause for quite a few years. But we needed to stay in the public eye and say other labs are doing this. And then I just knew working with other labs and writing that paper actually helped researchers come to me. So behind the scenes, there were really researchers, myself and other volunteers, caring volunteers, who were coming together to get this sanctuary built and funded. And so finally, we started the cause in 2004, and then finally the building for the sanctuary, and to help our first 3 monkeys from a out of state lab happened in 2018. And then fast forward to today, we're helping 11 monkeys, and 6 are from laboratories and 5 are from the pet trade. And I really didn't realize the need to help monkeys from the pet trade was that great. I don't know if you've ever experienced anyone who's had a pet monkey before.
No, so you have like ads saying that you're accepting monkeys if people no longer want them as pets? Is that how it works?
Well, the pet monkeys, the piece of the puzzle there is it's illegal in some states, it's legal in some states, in some counties, like in Wisconsin. It depends on the county you're in. And people go and they see these cute little babies online and think that, oh gosh, they should have a monkey, and put it in diapers and stuff. But then as monkeys age, they challenge dominance. And of course, they're wild animals, so they can be dangerous. They're unpredictable. And we're a hands off facility just exactly for that reason. we respect the monkey's space and let monkeys be monkeys. And, there's some pet monkey owners that just swear by it. And then they're even against us because we discourage pet monkey ownership. I've just heard too many sad stories. The sanctuary director, Polly Schultz, she wrote the book Monkeys Don't Wear Diapers. And it's really about people shunning monkeys to dog crates and then tipping it from side to side just to empty the feces and urine. So then the monkeys can often arrive to a sanctuary in more severe, dilapidated condition than actually, well, with labs, they have all the resources to give physicals and they have veterinarians. So you can request a physical be done. And then they have the annual physicals on the primates. So actually, when some monkeys come from the pet trade, they're in bad condition because also many veterinarians are against the use of monkeys in the pet trade. And so they won't help the pet monkey owners. And then the pet monkey owners really didn't realize what they got themselves into. And so they'll reach out to us when they feel that they, want a better environment for the monkey and want to send them to sanctuary. So Bella, for example, her owners actually spoiled her and treated her well, but they just got too old to be able to care for her because it is kind of like caring for a furry canine 2-year-old for about 35 years. I mean, just imagine running all over, yanking down curtains and so it's really, you really open a Pandora's box.
Can you talk a bit more about the early years of Primates Inc. development and what that was like? How you were, oh, you're fine. Just like how you were able to fundraise, and you mentioned that you overcame many challenges when you wanted to build your own sanctuary, and that took a long time. What was that process like, and how did you ultimately get through it?
When I left the lab, I didn't know where to go, but I chose to work for the city of Madison. And so in customer service, and it had nice benefits and gave me an income. And I was just very thankful to have that. And then I was able to donate my time. And I think when you are able to donate your time to a cause and take the money out of it, and you can get other people involved more easily, and then just growing, having a board. Basically, also what during my last year at the lab was when I filled out the paperwork to form the nonprofit and submitting that 1023 form and discussing your mission. But most importantly in that journey was business school too, which said to look at other businesses who are already doing it, and see if you actually need to form an org in the first place. So I'm sure there's so many causes and so many things that we need change in our world. So it was really important for me to travel to most of the sanctuaries I could and interview the sanctuary directors. And then also the sanctuaries I couldn't visit, we sent volunteers. And because my vacation time's so limited and all that, it was so nice to be able to delegate out and send volunteers to take notes. And these sanctuary directors really recognize there's such a need to help monkeys, and very to little no funding out there specifically to help monkeys achieve sanctuary. So that was another barrier. Then also people don't even know about the thousands of monkeys who are still in labs who could achieve sanctuary. So really increasing public awareness about the need to help the monkeys, keeping that presence at festivals, obtaining email addresses, sending out the e-news, having monthly meetings. The monthly meetings were always very rewarding and enriching. And there was actually a meeting during my last year at the lab where local animal activists and local researchers attended the meeting together. And I tell you, I was never so proud to bring two opposite ends together just for the common cause of sending monkeys to sanctuary. So really, having that bond of bringing people together for a common cause once they became aware. And then, being in the press is huge. And if people don't have a lot of money to spend, obviously, for their developing nonprofits, we were just raising money here and there. That letting the press know about your cause and what your intentions are, staying in the public eye was so key, because then it helps get the untouchables, unreachables ready to help support your cause, where you would have otherwise had to pay thousands in advertising trying to just reach people who care, because either you can't find them or they're too wealthy to approach, or a combo of the two. So we just been growing over the years, and yeah, it just was kind of painstaking to take all those years, but each year it just seemed to get more momentum behind it.
How did you bring those two groups of people together? You said that you had a meeting with animal activists and lab workers. Was that a specific effort on your part, or did it just kind of come together?
Yeah, it was a surprise, and rewarding to me. And then some in the lab, of course, the rumor got out that animal activists showed up to Amy's meeting, and oh my God. So there was that kind of, it certainly wasn't easy, but just knowing that we all maintained common ground of sending monkeys to sanctuary, and we were respectful of the platform. And then our org isn't a place really to debate animal research. There's plenty of anti-research orgs. There's plenty of pro-research orgs. I leave it to them to debate and do that's their thing. But our mission is to help monkeys achieve sanctuary and maximize that, because there are so many barriers up against researchers, helping them get out of the lab and stuff like that. And so animal activists want to see monkeys achieve sanctuary too, and get funding for it.
I wanted to ask you about a flatly run organization. Did you study that specifically, or what's your experience been like doing that? Like, I don't think I've been a part of any volunteer or paid position that had that kind of arrangement, and I'm just curious what the dynamic is day to day.
Well, with our unique situation at the sanctuary, there's usually only one primary caretaker up there. And so I'll fill in for staff when they're on vacation, or a couple times a month, to help keep costs down. And then really it helps me realize, as the executive director who's doing a lot of the fundraising and big picture stuff, it helps me realize what the day to day is. And by being there, to see what the care staff go through for that 8 hours, just to be reminded of the challenges. And then we have the daily email. So at the end of the day, all of us, I think, look forward to reading the daily email, because I get to read it after my work and just kind of see what monkeys did what and what went on for the day. And we're all excited to share things, and then like what challenges we have. And I think having a system and and maybe this is a part of something you've been a part of, where we're just, appreciating input and asking for input, and letting them know um, that this is the type of organization we are. The staff, all I'd say, always feel comfortable bringing forth suggestions, and I think having constraint as a director, it's taken. This was one of the principles that I did learn in business school about flatly run, was, you know, you you have to be willing and want the input, because sometimes it's hard to take feedback. You're like, you think you thought of everything, or you have to shift to that, and then you can get defensive or just shoot down someone's idea. So I had to literally train myself that, you and even when you get input, unsolicited advice from just random people too, that's a good thing. At least they care. They care enough to say something. And you don't always have to go with everyone's advice. But at least, consider it, or you can say, oh, you know what, we'll consider that for the future. You don't have to say, no right away. Or it's that culture that kind of suppresses people when you're always saying no, and let's do it my way. So I think it does take some training and self-reflection, but then it's really rewarding when you see, like, oh gosh, Fallon came up with that whole idea, and she's got visions for our next building. So I delegated things that I could be doing as executive director, but I know there's fully capable people around me. So I'm happy to delegate and empower. So that's also another strategy with a flatly run.
I guess I'm getting the impression that you kind of have a open door policy, and you're always communicating to people and getting their feedback and discussing all the options, but maybe not necessarily like taking a vote on every decision. But you talk everything over. Is that kind of how it works?
Yes, yeah, exactly. And then the board, they help make the big picture decisions, but mainly they trust myself and the animal care manager to do daily operations things. Like, I don't have to go running to the board to vote on every daily operational decision, because it's kind of like the executive decision that can be made. But when it's expensive, the board actually has a rule: when it's expenses that involve over $500, then I'll go to them with the proposal from the contractor and stuff like that. So when it's finances, when it's taking in a monkey, that's where we have the board vote. And then when it's expanding the facility, or building an outdoor enclosure, where, how big, um, stuff like that, that's staff meeting, brainstorming sessions, and then we kind of all. I think it's good that we all are open to input as well. So then we know if the teamwork is set there as the platform, and we're able to bring input forth without being suppressed, then that honestly leads to some great solutions. And then you don't have to deal with after the fact of, why didn't you ask me this? Why didn't we do that? Why didn't, you're addressing it before the problem might exist.
Has it been challenging, or have you had a specific strategy to making sure that everyone is focused on the mission as you had envisioned it originally? Because I remember you said before that there's a lot of animal rights organizations, and that's not exactly the area that you're doing, and there's a lot of pro-research organizations, and that's not really the focus, but you're sort of in the middle. And I imagine it can be tricky to making sure as you recruit for your board and you're hiring staff that you're attracting people who have that same passion for helping animals and not making it a deliberate advocacy type of effort.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, good point. I think that by being in the middle, like a curve, diagram, that the ends of each of the curve would just automatically not want to be a part of our org. So you've got the really pro researchers who are completely against retirement, and which means they're also against our org. And then you have the opposite end of the animal rights who are so into and against research, who want to focus on stopping it, that they're not even going to consider our cause, because it is too middle of the road. So there's automatic filtering, I guess, with that. And then also, if we do have a meeting and it starts to come about, we do bring it back to the mission of, like, our focus here is to send the monkeys to sanctuary, and we really need to focus on that. And so expanding, voting to take in monkeys is all based around our mission. And so even money, monkeys from the pet trade don't come with any money, so you could essentially, if just money were a factor, say no, no, no every time. But clearly the monkey needs help. So you need to overcome challenges on how to help that monkey from the pet trade, because that's part of our mission. And so that was one of the things that was a challenge in the board at one time. Like, why even, we had just a little bit, we discussed about whether to take the monkey, and it's like, well, money's not the only factor, it's a mission here, and who can we help and who's in need. So just bringing it back to the mission, I think really defining that mission, bringing back having as many rules as you can defined out, in the employee manual, the emergency response manual, the board agreement, people signing onto the board so they know what they're getting into. And then you can just simply refer people back to the guidelines and regulations. And people say, oh, can I hold a monkey? No, you can't. USDA regulations say, if you're going to visit, you need to stay 3 feet back. And so people don't get offended when you're referring to the rules and regs of making that mission and making that organization thrive.
Where do you see the future of where you're going? I guess Primates Inc. and you specifically, I guess. Both.
Well, it is so difficult to even help 11 monkeys, but we're doing it, and we're excited, and it's an honor to help them. But we're building our next building to help even more. And then at the sanctuary itself, the goal is to help up to 100 monkeys over the next 20 years, while serving as a prototype. Anyone who's interested in forming a monkey sanctuary, we refer them to the North American Primate Sanctuary Alliance. That's one of the organizations that we're a member of their org. And so that's a great way to obtain education and learn about the challenges. We're trying to make primate sanctuaries more mainstream, like other nonprofits, and show people the need to help them. And then, one day when no monkeys need help anymore, we would convert our mission to helping the most immediate animal in need, because I assure you there's always going to be animals that need our help.
That's so true. How can people support what you're doing?
Well, I'd love for them to visit our website at primatesinc.com and that's primatesinc.com. It would just be, we have volunteer opportunities, and then anyone who'd like to support our staff costs or general operating costs, we'd appreciate, tax deductible donation. There's also a wish list for the monkeys. They love their 5 fruits and veggies a day and their dried fruits and other treats and toys on that wish list there. And then we have open houses and events, the big swing in the fall. So it would just be great if people could share us on social media and check our website out.
Do you have merch too?
We do have an online store, so you can get a shirt similar to this as well.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for chatting with me, and I really learned a lot and appreciate what you're doing, Amy.
Oh, thank you for having me. It was an honor.
That was Amy Kerwin of Primates Inc. I am so appreciative that she was able to offer us her knowledge, and she took the time to share her experiences with us. I really felt so motivated and excited after speaking with her. I hope that you all feel the same way after listening to the conversation. For those of you who want to support the work of Primates Inc., you can visit primatesinc.com. They also have a page on their website where you can shop their merchandise. You weren't able to see Amy's cool t-shirt, but she was sporting a Primates Inc. t-shirt during the interview, and they have lots of different things on their website: mugs, t-shirts, baby onesies, so much stuff to shop for your friends or loved ones, and I hope that you support everything that they're doing. And thanks so much to Amy again. Special thanks to Buzz Kemper for his voiceover artistry in the opening. This episode was brought to you by the time and talent of Tyler Willenbrink. I'm Anna Gauker. Until next time.